It is fascinating to listen to people describe how they see themselves. In other words, what is the basis of your dignity? What is the basis of your identity as a human being? Do you view yourself as being loved or as being unloved? You and I live in a culture that says, measure yourself by appearance. How do you look physically? Are you one of the beautiful people? You and I live in a culture that says, measure your identity, measure your value by the size of your bank account or your stock portfolio. Are you wealthy or are you poor? You and I live in a culture that says, measure yourself, base your identity on how many important people know you and how many important people you know and hang out with. You and I live in a culture that says, compare your achievements to the achievements of others. That's the basis of your worth, your value, your identity, your dignity. The problem is that if you base your life on those options, you open yourself up to selfish ambition and competition. You have to compete with others and beat others in order to prove to the world, in order to prove to yourself your identity, your value. It also leads to guilt and to depression. You feel like you've done wrong when you haven't done wrong. You've become depressed because you don't measure up to some of those false standards. You feel like a failure at times, and you feel like withdrawing. You get into self-depreciation, and that is tragic. It's phenomenal to watch people who build their identity on appearance, bank account, people you know, comparing achievements. That is to build your life on sand. Jesus Christ says, you're loved by the God who created the universe. Build your identity, build your dignity and your value on Him. For He has given you value, given you dignity, given you identity. In other words, you don't earn your value. You don't earn your dignity. It is something that God gives you. How do you view yourself? As loved or as unloved? Do you view yourself as worthless or as valuable? When someone says, I am what I acquire, that's tragic. When someone says, I am what I feel, that's tragic. When someone else says, I am what I say, that's tragic. Why? Because all of that is disposable. In Psalm 8, the psalmist writes, what is man that you are mindful of him? The Son of Man that you care for him. You made him a little lower than the angels and crowned him with glory and honor. God values you. You are a treasure. Build your identity not on how you define your value, not on how other people define your value. Build your identity on how God defines your value. That is to build a solid identity. How do you view yourself? How do you see yourself? As self-reliant or as God-reliant? God is the King of the universe. And when the King says, I have given you value, you better believe Him. Your value is to come from Him. Now, are you self-reliant or are you God-reliant? You and I were created to depend upon God, for He is the Creator. What is sin? Sin is kicking God out of the picture and putting myself at the center of the universe. That is a fantasy. That is a lie. God calls us to depend on Him, to draw from His goodness, to draw from His grace, to draw from His generosity. God bless you as you learn to see yourself as God sees you. You and I have rebelled against Him. We've sinned, but He treasures us. He values us so highly that He sent His only Son, Christ, to bleed and die on a cross to buy us back. God has a price tag on your head, and that price tag is the life, death, and resurrection of His only Son, Jesus Christ. Don't sell yourself too cheaply. Put your faith in Christ and begin to see yourself as God sees you, as He created you to be.